All right. I'm Ralph, and this is my game review. Thank you for tuning into my channel. Thank you for subscribing, or if this is your first time listening, then feel free to do that. I guess that's what people do. So I was checking out this new game, Far Cry 6. I never played any of the other ones. It's like one of those shooter games, running around shooting people games. I don't really like that kind of game, those kind of video games. I don't know, too many bad memories. I used to know this guy back when I was in the army. At the end of my stint, they put me in this, I don't know what you call it, kind of a psych ward, but kind of a prison too. They claimed it was a hospital, but it never felt like they were trying to make me better. It felt like they were trying to extract information from me, but subtly, so I wouldn't notice they were doing it. But I noticed. The place had long hallways, and all the walls were this gray-green color, like somebody had sucked all the life out of the jungle. Left it this dried out husk that we were scurrying through like bugs. Bugs in a dead jungle. It was in that place, that hospital or whatever it was. That's where I met this guy. His name was Mr. Jones. He was a prisoner or a patient there like me. I don't know what he was in there for, but he had weird eyes. Always made me think of a fly's eyes. You know, they got those compound eyes. So we were there at the same time. He told me some weird stories. When he was just a boy, he lived on a farm, and on that farm they had a well. But the well wasn't for water. It was just a tunnel leading down into the earth, and at the bottom was a mouth. Or at least that's as far down as you could see. It wasn't the bottom. The hole kept going deeper and further into the earth. But you couldn't see down any lower than the mouth, and nothing that ever went down past it ever came back. He called it a mouth, but what was it really? What he described were rows of rings of teeth that looked like broken gray rocks, jagged and rough. The tunnel walls were lined with the thing starting about 20 feet down from the surface. The surface plus a 3-foot-high brick well that had been built around the hole. He said that when you stood at the edge of the thing, you could hear it breathing. This soft, wet, deep, long sound. Like a big animal stuck in deep mud, but way deep down inside the earth. Mr. Jones said the well, or at least the hole in the mouth down in it, had been down there since maybe forever. His folks had been living on that land for a few generations, and he figured the folks they'd taken the land from must have had some kind of relationship with the thing too. There were carvings in the ground all around the well. The carvings sort of told a story, like a comic book without words. Mr. Jones said he spent hundreds of hours studying those carvings, but he could never quite make out what they were meant to mean. What he did know was they had to feed the thing. Cattle mostly, sometimes a sheep or a goat. A couple of times it was coyotes, and another time it was a burlap sack full of angry, thrashing rats. And And of course, one time it was a neighbor boy from down the road. The hole seemed to really like that one. Practically begged for more. Mr. Jones said he watched the thing eat a couple of times. He had to. He was too curious to not. He said the big gray teeth would grind the bodies that fell down into the hole, grind them into a pulp which would then slide down deeper into the dark. We had to feed it, or else it would scream and cry. Not to sound like a person, but like rocks were crushing each other deep underground. And if you ignored the crying, then there were other things that would follow. This black syrup that would drip from the taps in the house. A bad smell in the air all around the farm, like garbage was burning. And then the moon would go away. Like you wouldn't be able to see it at night, even when there weren't any clouds in the sky. And the cries of the thing attracted other creatures. Animals, or something like animals. Mr. Jones said he never saw them, but he'd hear them at night, moving around the house and the barn, just out of reach of the lantern's light. Sometimes they'd find queer tracks in the mud the next day. Tracks that didn't match the feet or hooves of any known animals in the region. One time we found a horse who'd wandered away from the barn during the night. Well, we found pieces of it anyway, scattered amongst the branches of a grove of sweet-smelling pine trees. So we'd feed the mouth when it got hungry. I mean, that's what he said they'd do. Mr. Jones, my friend, the one I met in the mental asylum for soldiers who'd seen abnormal stuff. Mr. Jones got out a week before I did. He wasn't supposed to. He escaped. Just walked right out the front doors after stabbing a doctor in the throat with a blue ballpoint pen. I got a letter from him once, a few years later, asking if I wanted to come stay with him on his family's farm. I never wrote him back. Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6. You get to pretend you're a revolutionary. I've met a few revolutionaries. Most of them were pricks. Saw a few of them get shot. Anyway, it's a real pretty game, but it was a bit too complicated for me. I couldn't really figure it out. So, whatever, 5 out of 10. I'm Ralph. Share this video and like it or subscribe to it. I don't fucking know what to tell you what to do, man. I'm just Ralph.